Welcome to another Airbrush Asylum video. This is part 2 of the Wedge-tailed eagle tutorial. If you haven't already, go check out part 1 so that you can see how I got up to this part in the artwork. The colour that I'm using now to further detail the eagle is sepia. So this is obviously mixed with reducer. I do like to run my paint reasonably thin, so I generally run at about a 70% reducer with 30% paint. Now obviously it will depend on your skill with the airbrush as to how thin you'll run your paint. Thinning your paint out will allow the paint to run a lot more smoothly with less tip drying. However, it will make it a lot more difficult to control, especially when you're up nice and close trying to do those fine lines. So keep that in mind, and if you are new to airbrushing, I'd recommend starting off with a 1:1 mix ratio. That's if you're using Trident paint. Obviously every particular paint is different, so whatever brand you're using, just find that sweet spot that works for you as a combo of the paint mixture and the PSI. So when I'm running at that real thin ratio, so the 70-30, I generally run my micron at about 18 to 20 PSI. You can see I'm really detailing the feathers now using this sepia tone. So just kind of using it to firstly outline, so nice and close, keeping the airbrush moving to get that nice uninterrupted line. So really just using the airbrush to sketch in all of those feathers. So using some of my key points to know where I'm going with it, and then referring to my reference to know how dark I should be shading each individual feather. And I'm building like a layer upon layer approach. I'll further detail as I go on throughout this tutorial series. But at this stage, just trying to get all the foundations in place, and then I can further detail everything as I go. So the airbrush that I'm currently using is the Iwata CMC Plus Micron. This runs a 0.23mm needle nozzle setup, so it allows for nice fine detail as well as broad spray, so you get a good variation. And you've also got the MAC valve on the front, which allows you to drop the pressure at the front of the airbrush, so the air pressure going into your airbrush from your compressor remains the same, you're just adjusting the front. So this allows you to really turn the air pressure down to even, say, 5 psi, again over thin your paint and get really fine. So a handy little tool to have. And if this is the first time watching my videos, then welcome. For all of our regular viewers, welcome back. I do hope that you're enjoying this particular video so far. If you are, feel free to give it the thumbs up, share it out to someone that you might feel could benefit from this particular artwork or video tutorial. And if you haven't already, feel free to hit subscribe, tap on that bell icon, and that will notify you every time I put out a new video. So up nice and close and really shaping the eye of the eagle there. So coming back in and really starting to define it, pulling out some more detail. I do apologise for the slight glare on the video. I do hope that that doesn't stop you from picking up lots of tips from this tutorial series. So I do apologise for it, but I didn't want to not release this video due to that. Okay, so the reference has a bit of a orange tinge on some of the feathers and in the eye as well. So I am mixing up a transparent base mixed with the Trident orange and some reducer. I'm going to carefully follow my reference and highlight only the edges of the feathers that need that orange. So just being careful not to overdo it. Okay, so in around the beak area I'm going to add a light pink in a minute, but to start with I want to add a bit of light flesh. So the light flesh is going to just give a bit of that the tint that I'm needing, and also it's a great base color. And so utilizing a light pink, so this is just white mixed with drops of red, so be very careful with how much red you put in. The red, Trident especially, is extremely strong, so just 1 or 2 drops is ample, depending on obviously how much white you've got as your base. And now I'm going to use a transparent black-brown mix, so this is transparent base mixed with black and some sepia brown. So I'm up nice and close and really sharpening and defining some of those feathers now. So you really want to take your time with this step now, because we're getting closer to the final toning. And again, you don't want to overdo it, so bit by bit will work perfectly. Less is more. Keep in mind you can always add. It's a lot easier to add with the airbrush than it is to try and remove it, or white out a section, having to redo a whole section of the eagle. You're better off just taking your time and gradually building your shadows and deepening them as you go. And obviously keep following your reference. That's the key, that's the roadmap that you need to create any artwork. So now I'm doing some real fine dots to really stipple around that beak area. So up nice and close, you can see some of that pink overspray. So by laying that on there, it's obviously fogging out some of the underlying detail because it's got white mixed in there, and it becomes an opaque color as soon as you put white in a color. But that's also to your advantage because it kind of mottles the area and then you work back on top of it. I'm also really taking my time and being accurate as possible to how the feathers are shaped and what direction they're going in, and trying not to just replicate each feather to look the same. So believe it or not, it's quite easily done because your brain automatically just starts repeating what you're doing, so you've got to try and just break that cycle. You'll also notice that when I'm rendering the feathers, I tend to do the outline first, so up nice and close, get that nice and crisp, put in some of the detail, then move on to the next one, and then what I do is I start shading over the top and building my layers. So that's my personal preference. Everyone's going to do it differently, so whatever you need to do to achieve the desired result is the best method. There's no sort of right or wrong way of doing things. As long as the end result looks good, then you're on the right track. So pretty much wrapping up part 2 of this video. Be sure to check out part 3. Thanks again for watching, and go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very, very soon in the next video. Bye for now.